YouTube. My name is NahumNick2, and this game is called The Infectious Madness of Dr. Dekker. It is an FMV that was created in 2017. You are a psychiatrist taking on patients, trying to help them and also figure out who murdered the previous psychiatrist. Fun thing about this game is that every ending is different. Whoever the killer is, it's different each time. And you don't really get a grasp on who it could be until really the end. But you do dive into a lot of topics. A lot of people believe that they have superpowers, and it's the way that it's affecting them, and it's caused them to commit crimes, or people think they've committed crimes. And depending on how you play it, they have committed these crimes, and they're just using this as a way to get out of getting in trouble with the police, or it is actually true. But they do get into a lot of topics that I'll like to talk about. I'm going to also talk about the trophies, which ones I've struggled with, as well as just the characters in general and the game in general. So why don't we go ahead and get right into it. Alright, the first character is Nathan. Now Nathan suffers from depression. He crashed a car and it ended up killing his fiancée. And one of the things that he's stuck doing is living the same day over and over again. And the only way he can break free from it is to do something drastic. Like he burns his dead fiance's things and it helps move forward. So he has to do things to help himself move forward from the loss of his fiancée in order to be able to move on through the next day. And he's all around a pretty cool guy. I kind of liked him and the conversations that he had and his outlook. Could also be because of the multiple times I played the game, he never turned out to be the murderer, which I'm assuming is the luck of the draw. But kind of want to talk about living the same day over and over again. That is a horrific thought in my mind, because I feel that even if you had the best day of your life and you relived it over and over, you would just get bored. You would get bored and you would try to do anything to move forward, which is, I feel like, another reason why I feel for him, and I never felt like he was really a danger, because I could understand wanting to not live the same day over and over and over again. But with that said, yeah, I guess we could move on to the next person. The next person is Mariana, and the moment that I started talking to her in this game, I knew she was a siren. The reason she's there is a court order, because someone just ended up dead in her bed. And what she says is that people end up following her in a trance, and she feels very weird and creeped out about it. But she ends up blacking out, going to the ocean, swimming into it, and the person that's following her ends up dying. And she says that there's a monster under the ocean that eats them, and she can't do anything about it because she herself is also in a trance and she's blacked out and doesn't know what's going on. Well, when I got an ending where she murders you, well, she doesn't murder you, but she murdered the previous psychiatrist. She does say, I'm just going to tell them that you came to my house and did all these things to me, and yeah. And she very much turns into a siren, and she is very much guilty of her crime. And yeah, you got the two endings where one, it is true that there's some monster in a trance, and the other is, no, she's lying to get out of a court order. And yeah, tries to sleep with you the whole time so she can use it against you. That's it about her. I'm kidding. If I ended up being some type of siren where people followed me to my doom, it would be unnerving. Now, I don't really feel as bad for her. Now, it could be because I'm a recluse, so I would just stay in the house anyways, and I wouldn't have any bother. But she talks about going to the clubs and dancing and doing all these things, and these men just following her. It's like, if you had an issue with bringing these guys to their doom, even if you're blacked out, Why would you go out into an area, and not only that, to clubs where people are getting drunk, so their will is weaker and they fall into these trances and all this stuff. So maybe that is just a me thing. So if I had that problem, I don't think it would really hinder me too much, because I don't just go out. And also, siren is kind of only a woman's thing. It's very rare you hear about men putting women in trances. Like Dracula's the only one that I can think of. And so, I don't know. This aspect of a power doesn't really resonate with me, I guess I should say. But alright, on to the next one. Next we have Elin, and she works in a retirement home. And her ability is that when someone is about to die, she can change her form to look like their loved ones. And she can pretend to be a loved one so that the people can die as the person that they love. And her whole thing is that she's called the, like the death bringer, because all of the patients seem to die under her care. And she says that they die because she's their loved one and they have no reason to hold on anymore. Now, there are two flip sides to hers that I saw. One was that it is true, and the second one is that it's not, and she's killing them. And one of the things that happens is that when they're dying, they give her like trinkets and like things that they have on her, and she accepts them. And even if you did have that power, if you're in the form of someone's loved one and they try to give you something, I think taking it and keeping it and wearing it around is really bad. Now, in the end, she does seem kind of like a sweetheart, but also in the bad ending, she tries to poison you with cookies. So, yeah, there's that. And her power of being able to change to people's loved ones before they die, I don't really think that I would want to have that. I don't think that I would like the pressure of doing that when people are about to die. I'm sure it would actually be a really nice gift to other people, but I just don't know if I could handle spending so much time being around people that die. That's probably why I wouldn't work at a retirement home. I just don't think that I could actually handle being around death so much, even if I'm just easing people into it by being their loved ones. It's kind of a hard pass for me. I don't think there would be anything really wrong with it. And the lady does come off as really sweet, and it does seem like kind of a little power that goes well with her, as long as she's not the killer that turn. But yeah, that's really about that for her. So let's go on to the next one. Now, Claire is the next one up. I actually really liked Claire. Now, the thing that's different about Claire and all the other ones is that she 100% absolutely murdered her husband. Good or bad ending, she did. She doesn't deny it. She says it. Her power that she has is that she can bring people back to life. And now, she asks you to say that she's temporarily insane because she feels like it's not right that she goes to jail, because even though she did murder her husband, she brought him back to life, so technically he's not really dead, and that she shouldn't, and that it was all just a fit of rage, and she shouldn't go to prison for it. And she's a super rich lady. She has this confidence about her, and I don't know, I actually really liked her as a character. And as far as it goes to bringing people back to life, I would never really want that ability. Now, she regrets it because she waits like a week after he's been dead and is like, yeah, his brain's deteriorated. and he turns into a zombie and starts like murdering cats and girls if you end up letting him, depending on what you choose. But I don't know. I don't think I would ever really want to bring people back to life. It never works out. There's always some type of trick to it, and it just, yeah, it's just something I would never really want to do. Next up is Jaya. Now, she is actually your assistant, and she was the assistant to the psychiatrist before you. She's pretty cool. Even on her bad ending, it's more of the fact that you're just kind of being a piece of shit. So, one of the things is that she just reminded me of someone, and I could not figure out who it was. And I even looked it up, and it's no one. I don't know. She just looks like someone I know. But she doesn't really have any powers. Now, she does talk a lot about science. She brings up this one book that's pretty much about how you can will things into existence. And it kind of sets things up for when everything turns out to be true, where it's like if you believe in it enough, it will happen, which is also something that the former psychiatrist is also kind of about. And so there are some parts where it's like, oh, she entered your dream, or all these things happen, but she doesn't really have a solid power. And she does seem kind of like a character that helps move things along between the interactions with your patients and what's just kind of going on in general, and she helps tie it together. And she seems like that kind of character. But she can also be the bad guy. Now, Bryce. Bryce is a very fidgety character. He's a grave digger. His power is that at midnight, time freezes and he gets an entire hour to do whatever he wants. And he comes to you and he tells you this, and he tells you everything that he's done. How he's taken photos of his neighbor, how he's able to undress them, but how he stopped brawls, how he stopped a lady from dying, and he tries to better himself. And he does seem like kind of a good guy who is sitting there falling into the temptation of doing all the things that you shouldn't really do if time froze, to trying to become more of a better person. He does save a few people. He does actually seem to care and feel remorse whenever he does any bad things. And it's not like he just keeps doing it and feels bad. He does actually slowly change. And even on the bad ending, it is more of a, once again, like a you kind of deserve it kind of situation over actually having him just be a bad person. And I actually really kind of liked him. And for his power, I mean, who hasn't thought about being able to freeze time? I mean, I know I have. And I actually feel like that's kind of why I like this character. I think it's the same with Nathan. I think the reason why I like him and Nathan's characters is because the struggles they have with their powers are something I can relate to. As much as I wish I could just freeze time and I'd be able to deny any temptation to do anything wrong, I know that it would definitely take some willpower. I wish I could be a good person every single second, but I know that I'm not. And so when I see him struggle and I see him grow into trying to actually do good, it's something that I would see myself also having to face. And I think out of all the powers, I would want to be able to freeze time the most. I think that his power's the best. He does have a few issues that he goes through because of it. He also has the most connection with all the characters because he's able to just have an hour where he snoops around. He snoops around your house if you start being bad, and he starts asking you a few questions, which kind of determine a few of the endings. So he is a very crucial character, and that'll be it for him. There are a few side characters. I'm going to kind of just skim over pretty much what their powers are and what I would do with it. I think there was a total of 5. One of them was a guy who walked through doors, and whenever he walked through a door, he would show up in a different room than he was supposed to. That power, that would probably be one of the scariest ones, because you would have to pretty much be lucky to walk into a room where you can get food, where you can sleep, take a shower, be safe, and it would be very luck based, and it would, yeah, kind of suck to have to live that way for your entire life. One of the ladies, she was able to go into people's dreams. I think that would actually be really cool. I would love to go into people's dreams. I have very weird and crazy dreams, and I don't really get too scared. I don't really have nightmares. I just kind of let go with the flow. And I think it would be really interesting to see what someone else's subconscious could come up with. And yeah, and then the third and final one that I'm going to talk about is he didn't have a power. He just believed in quantum suicide. And quantum suicide is putting your life at stake, or putting high stakes up where there's no choice but to only be 2 outcomes. So that way you can use your mind and push your consciousness to the outcome that you'll succeed or you won't die. Now I do know this theory, and I've heard it a few times, but I never would ever actually want to do that, because even though you are succeeding in the timeline that you've pushed your consciousness in, you have to also know that in the other timeline you have absolutely screwed yourself. And even if it wasn't just yourself, you're still just endangering someone or making someone else's life hurt, even if it could just be your own life, simply for your own greed or your own wants, instead of just seeing what happens. Now, the last person I'm going to talk about is the psychiatrist who got murdered. It's hard to talk about him without getting into the endings. So, what I will say is, I know that I've spent a lot of this video talking about as if these people actually had powers and what I would do in those circumstances. But in reality, there's really 2 different timelines, and your choices between each of them will kind of determine what happens. Also gets determined by whoever's the killer, which is randomized. But the 2 takeaways are, one of the endings, where none of the powers is real, is that there's a guy who knows that the doctor's kind of going insane, and he convinces the people who are in trouble with the law to come see this psychiatrist and to wholeheartedly believe that they have a power to make sure they stick to the story and tell them, because the psychiatrist is going to believe in these kind of things, and he does push them towards doing their power, which also kind of pushes them towards, I guess, doing more crimes. But in that kind of timeline, he gets murdered by one of these patients just because he would refuse to say that they're insane. Like, he would call out, be like, you're not real, you don't have real powers, you're going to go to jail. And so they would just murder him and pretty much restart the whole storytelling with you. Now, another timeline is where they do have the powers, and the doctor pushes them to use their powers so that way he can see if it's true or not, so that way he can start believing that he has those powers. And at the end of the game, it turns out that you are actually the doctor from before, that you just have the ability to bring yourself back to life, to change your skin, pretty much to do all the things that all of the patients did, because you've spent so much time pushing them to do it. And that's kind of the takeaway, no matter which ending that you have, whether it's because he's insane, whether because he actually gets powers, he does spend all of his time either pushing the delusion or pushing them to use their power when they don't want to, instead of helping them. And that's usually where it goes down, where if whoever murdered him, usually it's not like a horrible thing because it's a psychiatrist at best using his patients to get powers, at worst pushing his patients towards delusion because he himself has become delusional. Now, I know I probably haven't seen all the endings. I know that I have probably missed a lot of things that would change my feelings towards certain characters. But the one thing that I know I can take away from this is that this game is all about, if you believe, you can will things into existence. Whether it's powers, whether it's to get out of jail, but the choices you make in here are pretty much whatever it is that you believe. And that's where the game turns. So if you want them to have powers, you believe that they do, then they do. If they don't have the powers, then they don't. It's whatever you will. And now I know some people believe in being able to will things into the universe. Some people don't. I like to think it's somewhere in between. I think that you can will things in the universe, but you have to take some type of action. And there has to be some type of logical conclusion. You can't just believe you can fly and then you'll fly. But you can, as long as there is a logical conclusion, like you believe that you can get a certain job, as long as you actually apply to that job, as long as you have trained for that job, then yeah, you can get it. As long as you will yourself into wanting to do it. Because the willpower isn't just with the universe, it's also within yourself. And this game kind of had me reflect that a little bit, as well as seeing the people struggle with all their issues and all their powers. Kind of made me wonder what I would do in those situations. Would I react like they would? And it really made me kind of think, which I really liked about the game. So, I guess it's time to move on to the trophies. Let's move on to the trophies. So the trophies on this game are actually pretty easy. There's not a lot of explanation that has to actually go into a lot of these. A lot of them is just playing a game for a certain amount of time, or getting a certain amount of like insanity points, or asking questions, or getting answers. So it's pretty much that, and it's all in kind of a concession. And so it really is going to be a short list and a short time on these trophies. But let's go ahead, get in it, and yeah, I hope you enjoy these trophies. Alright, first up is intern. It's where you get 10 responses from the patients. And then you have 20 questions, which is pretty much you've asked 20 questions. Then you got Century, which is 100 questions asked. And then you have House Officer, which is getting 100 responses from the patient. And then you have Mind Games. Now this one is one that I would have to explain. You get 50 insanity points. Insanity points is pretty much the questions where it would seem like you actually believe whatever powers they have, and it makes you kind of go insane. But you get 50 of them for this one. Next is Curious, which is asking 250 questions. The next one is Registar, which is getting 250 answers. The next is Movie Length, which is playing the game for 2 hours. Next is Committed, which is 500 questions asked. The next is Practitioner, which is 500 response asked. Next is Slightly Mad, which is gaining 200 insane points. Next is Part-Timer, which is playing a playthrough for 4 hours. The next is The Power of Deduction, which is just beating the game. The next one is Hinty Aftertaste, which is beating a game with less than 100 hints. The next is Seeing Things, which is getting 300 insane points. And the next is Hintless Wonder, no hints. And now the thing about the hints is that you can very much accidentally hit the down button, which will then show you a hint. It will be frustrating if you're going through the entire game and you accidentally do hit that button, because there is no going back. There is no, are you sure you want to use a hint? But let's go ahead and continue on with the trophies. With Lucky Guess, you have to guess who killed the psychiatrist in your first try. So when they give you the lineup of all 6 of them, you just have to pick the right one, and it is kind of a lucky guess, as the trophy says. The next one is Late Shift, where you have to play for 8 hours in a single playthrough. And I thought that this was going to be the most annoying trophy to get until the next 2 trophies that actually pop up. Because the next one is Inquisitive, and that is, you have to ask 1,000 questions. And the thing about asking the 1,000 questions is there's a thing in this game that I haven't mentioned yet, but you can type in questions for them to answer. And the questions, one, I have to look up a guide. There's no way you can think of every question, even though you can kind of use the hint system if you want to take forever. But I was typing everything in with my PlayStation controller. I didn't have a keyboard. And to anyone who has ever tried to type anything with a controller, you know that it is the worst thing possible. My fingers hurt so much trying to type out all of these words. Here's actually a video of me getting the trophy. Yay!
John.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about getting that trophy until realized I actually had another trophy that I needed to get, which was Cthulhu. Cthulhu is a trophy of getting 400 insanity points, which is pretty much all of it. So I had to continue to play and type in every single question to be able to get all the questions. And if I had it on PC, it would have been way smoother, way easy. But because I was playing it on my PS4 and had to use the controller to type, it made this part the kind of the worst part. But once again, when I got that trophy, I was pretty excited. Here's a clip of that. Fucking yeah, boy. And with that, I could finally be done with that. Typing with the controller was the bane of my existence through this entire thing. But I did save my last trophy that I thought it was going to be probably a funny trophy, and I saved it for last because all of these trophies are set in a way of when I triggered them. And this was the very last trophy before I finally popped the platinum. And it was called Share This. And that's where you get to make one of the characters, the description says you make him sing. Well, I'll show you exactly what it was and how I felt about it at the end.
We just met. I chose not to tell you I travelled back in time. Sorry. If I could turn back time, Doctor. If I could find a way.
If I could turn back time, if I can find a way. That was a good one. That was in fact not a good one. I think I was so delirious of spending 6 hours out of the 8 hours of playing that game typing things out, that to finally be done, that was just such a great moment for me. But when looking back on it and thinking about it, I was like, I thought he was actually supposed to sing, not just say some lines. And you get that trophy by all the way at the very end typing out a message saying, I thought you said you couldn't time travel. And then that's what he says, and that's how you get it. It wasn't anything really that special. But as you can see from the clip, I was like, yeah, good one. It wasn't. And with that, I popped the platinum trophy, and then got all the trophies and finished the game finally. And that's going to be the end of the video. I appreciate anyone who's made it this far. Leave a comment about who your favorite character was, what superpowers you like or don't like, and why that is. And if you've played this game and you don't like how I analyzed the characters or viewed the game, leave a comment on that. You can like and subscribe. And that would also be very appreciated. This is my first video that I've made that's been like this. I've really wanted to make a video like this for a long time, analyzing video games. I love playing video games. I love talking about video games. And I hope that this will be able to continue. I've done all the editing, all the voiceover through my PS4. There's going to be a lot more that I have to learn, a lot more ways I'm going to make it easier. Some of the things might change, but I'm just really glad I was able to get this first video out. And I really appreciate anyone who's watched it and took the time to listen to my voice over the games. It means a lot to me. I don't really have an outro. You can watch me live stream at Nahum_Nick2 on Twitch. I do occasionally live stream on YouTube. I may switch it more over to Twitch now that I'm doing these videos, but that's it. Once again, I really appreciate it, and goodbye. Enjoy the rest of your day.